My name is Mike. I work in sales for a clothing company. My performance is about average, earning a decent salary. My life will always be the same. And I believe the same for today. Delivery for you. That day, I was delivering items like bandages and disinfectants to a small orthopedic clinic. The receptionist was supposed to come and get them, so I just left the big cardboard box at the front desk and planned to head out. Ouch! I accidentally let the box slip from my grasp, dropping it right on my left toe, and the pain was immediate. Though the box was heavy, luckily, nothing fragile was inside. I first checked the products for damage, but then, I tried to stand, but couldn't. The pain was too intense. Seeing this whole incident, the receptionist looked concerned. "Are you okay?" "Just for my pride," I replied. "I'm fine," in which I honestly wasn't. Removing my sock, my toe was already red, and I figured it'll bruise horribly over time. I thought of icing it, but could barely move without limping. "Need help?" The receptionist had alerted a doctor. The clinic was nearly empty as the consultation hours were almost over. The doctor, who was a lady, looked worriedly at me. "This might be fractured. Let's get an X-ray. Fill out this form and hand over your health insurance card." Her efficiency was assuring. The pain and the possibility of a fracture scared me, so I complied. Turns out, it wasn't broken but had a minor crack. A moment's inattention can lead to lasting pain, as they say. She prescribed painkillers and a few follow-up visits. I was pretty bummed. But this is how I met my wife, Arya. The circumstances of our meeting were embarrassing for me, but Arya is truly a wonderful person. Beautiful, kind, and a doctor. Yet, she's sensitive, gentle, and sentimental at times. I fell for Arya during my regular clinic visits. Soon after, we began dating and eventually got married. Whether it was our family meeting, or our wedding, or even on our regular dates, her emotional side often showed. People always assume female doctors are strict, but you never did. That's what made me happy. Arya once said. Sure, with her long hair and piercing eyes, she might seem stern. And indeed, during work, she is a strict person. But work and personal life are separate. Our life under the same roof had its ups and downs, but overall, we had a good marital bond. However, in our 5th year of marriage, things took a turn. The trigger was the death of Arya's father. He was already an elderly, and Arya had somewhat braced herself for this. After getting the call, Arya and I headed to her parents' house. Arya's family home is so far away that we have to take a plane. While on the plane, I reminisced about my father-in-law. Arya's dad came from a long line of doctors, and I remembered that he had his own privately run hospital. I'm not very familiar with all these things. Well, this is because Arya doesn't like talking about her father. But I know he was a very strict man. When we get married, I was suggested, or rather, ordered by my company to see if we could make a business deal with him. When I approached my father-in-law about it, he got pretty mad at me. Private practices like ours value networking. Just because you're married to my daughter doesn't mean you can barge in on that. Thankfully, Arya explained to him that I was forced into it by my company, which cleared up the misunderstanding. She said he's old-fashioned, and that's why he values relationships. That's probably why he was able to run his clinic for so many years. But all things must come to an end. When we arrived at Arya's family home, we prepared for the funeral. The funeral progressed without any issues, and soon we were left to head back. But then, I was suddenly called out by Arya. What's the matter all of a sudden? Well, they just unsealed my father's last will and testament. Arya explained, looking down. It seems her father had considerable assets and named Arya as the sole beneficiary. It's not surprising given Arya's an only child. However, the problem was that the inheritance included her father's clinic. Before, my father told me I couldn't inherit his clinic because he thought I wasn't ready or capable enough, and that was why it was hard for me to talk about my family. The reason Arya works at another hospital and didn't take over her family's practice was not just because she couldn't, but she wanted to earn her father's approval. Tears streamed down Arya's face. I thought, no matter what I did, he'd never recognize me, but in his will, he left the clinic to me. He said, "It's up to you now. I want to look after the clinic." Those words weighed heavy on my heart. I knew she wanted her father's approval, but commuting from our current home to Arya's family house was impossible. If Arya took over the clinic, we'd have to move, and I'd have to quit my job. I understand how you feel, Arya, but I can't give you an answer right now. I have my job and built my own networks back there. It won't be easy just to say I quit and expect everything to be fine. Moving to a place where I don't know anyone, finding a new job, and living with my mother-in-law who's now all alone, made it hard for me to respond immediately. After all, my mother-in-law is also at the point in her life that will soon require some care. It was a lot to consider, and honestly, I hoped Arya wouldn't take over the clinic. But at the same time, if it was for Arya, I also wanted to support her decision. What? Me? A department manager? The next day, as I was heading to work as usual, I was stopped by my boss. Apparently, he had recommended me for a department manager position. But I haven't produced any exceptional results. True, your performance is average, but your retention rate for new clients is the best. This means you consistently bring in profit. I've never been interested in promotions, so I didn't compare my results with my peers or seniors. It turns out those with impressive numbers to have many new clients, but not many of them keep repeating. They all seem to have the plan, throw enough mud at the wall and some of it will stick. While I have fewer new clients, almost all of them become repeat customers. And this was the reason for my promotion. I was overjoyed. I might not be interested in climbing the ladder, but that doesn't mean I lack the desire to seize the opportunities in front of me. For the first time in my life, I was genuinely excited about a job opportunity. I bet that's how Arya felt too. I couldn't let my selfishness ruin Arya's career. So, during my break, I called Arya and discussed the promotion. "Sorry, honestly, I can't move there. I talked to the boss, and there's no branch there. If I transfer, the promotion might be off the table." Well, if that's the case, it can't be helped. After discussing, we decided to prioritize our careers. Essentially, we chose to go our separate ways. Of course, I love Arya dearly. But this isn't like a temporary work assignment. We'd be working in different places without any plans to return. Carrying on a marriage in such conditions would be pointless. So, we decided to divorce, but there are no regrets since it was a mutual decision out of respect for each other. Fast forward 20 years. In that time, I went from a regular employee to a supervisor and then to a department head. Being single does feel lonely sometimes, but without a family to worry about, I could immerse myself fully in my work. Having my first team and being in a leadership role was thrilling and made work so much fun. Of course, Arya and I still keep in touch. Once a month or once every few months. We chat about work and life updates, so we've managed to maintain a good friendship. I thought it would always be like this. But until... Breaking news, there was a significant earthquake just a moment ago. While having lunch at a burger shop, my eyes were glued to the TV setup in the place. Apparently, there had been a massive earthquake, equivalent to magnitude 7. The news quickly reported on the areas that felt the most shock, and Arya's town, where her hospital was located, was one of the hardest hit. Arya. I tried calling her immediately, but didn't get an answer. No matter how many times I dialed, there was no answer. Although I did go back to work temporarily, I was too distracted to do anything. Sneaking a peek online, I found some helicopter footages of the affected areas. Arya's region was severely damaged. I rushed to inform my workplace and managed to get a week off. Thankfully, I had a great team who understood and supported my decision. I headed straight for Arya's place. It took a while, but I finally made it to her hospital. But no, this can't be. Arya's hospital was completely destroyed. The building that once stood there was gone. Overwhelmed, I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. Memories of Arya flooded back, and I couldn't help but scream out in despair. If I kept Arya by my side, would things have been different? If we had moved here together, could I have protected her? Endless what-ifs consumed me. But no matter how much I cried, Arya was gone. Mike. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed, and I turned around. Arya was looking at me, looking absolutely worn out. It's not a mistake, Arya is definitely there. I was so overwhelmed with joy that I stood up. Arya, Arya, oh thank goodness. I ran towards her. Although Arya looked ragged, she didn't seem to have any major injuries. Why are you here? I flew over here out of worry. Saw the news about this area on TV, but when I arrived, the hospital was. Saying that, Arya began explaining, looking sad. On the day of the earthquake, Arya had been visiting her mother's and father's graves. Her mother had passed away the previous year, and it wasn't even the anniversary of her death. But Arya continued, you might find it strange, but I just felt the need to see my parents' faces. Now that I think about it, maybe they were calling out to me. Apparently, Arya was caught in the disaster while visiting the graves and luckily escaped unharmed. However, with so many injured, the disaster-stricken area was chaotic. That's when Arya, an orthopedic surgeon, headed to a large hospital to help. It's not settled yet, but volunteers have been coming to help. I also came to check on my home. Arya looked sadly at the hospital that had collapsed. All the effort I put in after taking over from my father, it's all gone now. Seeing Arya with a face of despair, I tightly hugged her. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you during these tough times. You don't have to say that. At the end you came to see me, didn't you? As Arya said that, a tear trickled down her face. I faced her. I'm so grateful that you're alive. I thought I'd never see you again, and I cried for the first time in a long time. Haha, I'm glad your tears are still doing its job. Mine, on the other hand, feels like it's completely drained. Arya wiped away my tears. In the past, I was the one wiping away Arya's tears. How the tables have turned. Looking at Arya again, I saw her face drained and weary. Of course, she had lost everything she had built up till now. We'd have to think about the future. I knew that such matters should be approached rationally so that both of us would be satisfied, but at that time, I was too overjoyed by the fact that Arya was alive and couldn't stay calm. Arya, how about coming back to me? I'm not forcing you, but I regretted it so much earlier. I should have been with you. I was filled with so much regret. That's how much you mean to me. I don't want to feel that way ever again. Saying that, Arya responded, yes, I also want to be by your side again. You came to save me when I was all alone. I don't want you to feel lonely either. And so, Arya and I decided to get back together. But that doesn't mean we can just start afresh immediately. With Arya's family home destroyed by the disaster and many still injured, the presence of a doctor is crucial. I'll contact you once things settle down. Got it, I'll prepare on my end too. And so, We separated again, promising to reunite. 1 year later. I never imagined I'd come back here, and I certainly didn't think I'd be able to start my own clinic. Ari returned to me and even started her own clinic. The name was carried over from her father's hospital. In her heart, it might have felt more like a relocation. By the way, the startup funds came from my early retirement package. Actually, the company's performance had been poor for the past few years, and they were looking for early retirees. I was pondering what to do, but with an added bonus to the severance package, I decided to use that money to build Arya's clinic. So, this clinic is co-owned by both Arya and me. But all I could do was procure necessary equipment and some basic clerical work. Also, using the connections I had from my job, I managed to recruit some clerks and nurses. According to Arya, having been away from this land for so long, your connections really helped. There aren't many orthopedic clinics around here, and it quickly became popular among the elderly. It's thanks to you that I can start over. Truly, thank you. Thank you for being by my side. You never know what life will throw at you. But even if I'm told my life ends tomorrow, I want to be next to the one I love. I don't want to have regrets like before. Even though we are just an old couple, you can always restart your life anytime. I want to keep walking along with Arya so that when we look back, we can say it was a good life.